and have it all captured. I'm going to keep admitting people in here. So as you come in, please say hello in the chat and tell us your title. I'm a, like, how would you introduce yourself if you had to, like, give yourself a title? Because I love this. Like, you never know who is going to be coming into a room like this. And they could be your next connection. They could be your next business bestie. They could be your next client. And so I want us to make sure we have an opportunity each day to introduce ourselves in the chat. And starting off today with, what is your title? What do you call yourself? If you had to put that in a few words and put it like maybe on an office door or something like that. And I'm going to encourage you. Everyone who is in here has access to the Redeem Her Time community. So if there's somebody that you're like, ooh, man, a top cat, what's that all about? Or a Kingdom Business Mentor, or we have an event planner in the house, the expert detail wrangler. Ooh, I love that. I was just talking to my husband about you yesterday, girl. So I'm coming for you soon. Yeah, so you guys can directly connect, of course, in the chat. Hopefully don't be distracting to what we're doing today, but then over inside the community where you can connect with some other amazing women. So as we're coming in, I want to drop in the chat the link to the challenge dashboard. Super easy to remember, redeemhertime.com, like everything is, /challenge dashboard. Okay, and that is the place where you're going to find all the important links you need. So to get in the Zoom room, if you're for whatever reason can't find the Zoom link and you're like, how do I get there? To watch the replays, they're going to be inside of there. To invite a friend. Yes, it is not too late to invite a friend because I think you're going to see the value of the time that we're spending here together. And also, I'll be talking in a minute about a special link that is inside of there. But just want to make sure everyone has the link to that. And I just want to say, yay for you. Like, I am so excited that you are here either live or on the replay because you are making time to find the time, right? Like, most people just keep running on the same hamster wheel, trying to find the time, chasing the fact that they don't have enough time, and they wonder why nothing changes about their time and why their business isn't growing. But spoiler alert, okay, ready for this? That's because our busyness and our time challenges are really not a clock or calendar issue. They're a heart issue. Let me say that again. Our busyness and our calendar challenges, whatever that may be, fill in the blank, is really not a clock or a calendar issue. It's a heart issue. It just shows up, right, in the chasing of the clock and chasing of the calendar. And so often we are looking in the wrong direction to try to fix the problem. And then we wonder why, we still are struggling with that. But I know that's not you, at least not today or any day after this challenge, because literally the next 4 days together, I believe, I pray, are going to completely transform you and your time and your business. So you are in the right place. If you are a woman, and you have work you're called to. Most of you, it's probably a business, but it also could be a ministry or a leadership position or just, being faithful in the roles that God has given you. Okay, so if you're a woman that's called to some work and you only have 24 hours to fit it all in. Okay, if that's you, say me in the chat. Are you a woman who has work to do and only 24 hours to do it? If so, I want to open up the chat. This is where I know you guys are with me and things like that. So we're gonna get that going there, right? And we are here to find the time. So I would love for you to drop, as we're kind of getting ready and continuing to invite people in, what is it that you would like to find time for or more time for as we head into fall? This is back to school season. We're thinking about upcoming holidays. We're thinking about the end of the year. What is it that you want to find time for? Whether it's getting 0 right now or whether it's getting some and you just want to up-level that, drop that in the chat because I would love to hear what kinds of things we're looking for. Fun. Okay. Yes, I know, Nadine, we've had that conversation about making sure we make time for fun. So important. I got to close this. Working on our daily walk with God. I love that, Nikki, because that's the foundation of everything. Exercise. Yes, girl. This morning I had some great time doing that, which got the blood flowing. More time to focus on my fitness, my health. Okay, I'm seeing a theme here. And that's one of the areas that we talk about. And we will work on how to find time for all of that. So next question for you. I was thinking about this. When women come to me, usually they're in one of 3 places. Okay, so once you listen to these 3 and tell me in the chat, this is no shame, no story, no judgment, just which one you think you're in right now. Okay, woman number 1. She knows her time is out of control. She is drowning and she needs help. It's like, right? Everything's just like this. Woman number two, it looks like she's got everything under control, right? She's got time management, she's got a planner, she's got checklists or time blocks or whatever, but she knows deep inside she's treading water and it's exhausting trying to keep up with it all. And then woman number three is that woman who's just ready to let go of control. She's ready to back float and knows, because she knows she's never fully arrived, but she's always learning to trust and live by faith as she grows. So I'm curious, which woman are you today? Are you the, I'm out of control? I look like I have it all under control, but secretly, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, or I'm ready to let go of control. And it's okay if it's all the above, because I think depending on the day, right? We can be those things. Okay. So I see a lot of twos. Okay. And I think that's really a great place to be, because it's like, we're not in this place of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's okay if you are number one, right? But I want you to think about the difference between I've got it all under control and I'm letting go of control. Okay. That's going to be one thing, one shift we're going to make today. And we're going to keep coming back to this week. One is how I feel, but I look like number two. Okay. That is so true, right? And you're going to get this taste this week of being in the room with women. I'm calling you CEOs. We'll talk about how we've redefined that in a minute, that are in all three different places, right? And so this is where we are going to grow together. So I want to encourage you to show up on the lives or watching the replays. Hello to all my replay watchers or listeners right now, right? You can go to that challenge dashboard. Let me drop that link in the chat again for those of you who joined us afterwards. It's redeemhertime.com/challenge-dashboard. And that's where you're going to find all the replays, the links to join us live. Make sure you get your free gifts. There's some other goodies and stuff inside of there. And I'm going to encourage you, if you aren't able to be on live one day this week, which I totally get, life happens, right? You have other lives and businesses and work to do. Commit to yourself that you will watch or listen to the replay within 24 hours. And then you will show up in the community to do your homework, which is where you're going to get coached, and you're going to also be able to learn as other people get coached. Okay. So that's going to be really, really important as we're doing that. And I'm just here to tell you, God is already doing amazing work inside of my CEO program. And I don't believe that he's brought you here by chance, and it's not by accident. So I want to stop and pray and acknowledge the author of time, the one that all of this even matters for, before we dive into today's training. Okay. Dear Lord, God, we just thank you. I thank you for this time in this place. You knew exactly who was going to be here and who needed to hear the message that is coming forth today and the rest of this week. And so, God, we acknowledge that our time is not our own. God, we acknowledge that so often we try to keep it under control and we try to manage it all, and that we're often doing it without you, or we say we're doing it with you, but really we're the ones who are doing it all. And so, God, just this week, I pray that you would meet each woman, including myself, right where we are. I pray that you will show us the truth about our time and the gift that it is. I pray that you will just continue to walk with us and challenge us to walk with you as we move from managing to stewarding, and as we really start shifting the way we view our time and the way we protect our time and the way we focus our time and the ROI we get on our time. So God, we just give you all the glory. I pray that you'll give me the words, and I pray that you will open up hearts and ears to hear what you have to say. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Well, I think we've got most people on probably now who are coming in live. So we're kicking off day one called Think You Don't Have Time. It's time to think again. And by the time we're done today, here's what I'm going to tell you. Time is not going to be your excuse anymore. You're not going to keep waiting for more time or the perfect time to appear. Okay. You're also going to start focusing on the time you have rather than the time you think you don't have. And you're going to start treating your time with more attention and intention, because you're going to start seeing, maybe you already are, but in a bigger way, that bigger purpose that God has behind it. And when you know there's this bigger purpose behind it, then you start investing your time wisely in the life and business that you're called to. And that's when we start really seeing the growth that we've been praying for, right? Now, doesn't matter where you are in life or where you are in business. As my hubby always says, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. And you know when the second best time is? Today, right? So I want you to agree with me in the chat that you are going to start planting these seeds of truth in your heart, in your mind, and let them go out into your calendar. And guess what happens when we plant those seeds and we are faithful in doing our part? God brings the growth. right? And we are going, when we do that, we see an increase in our impact and our income. Who wants that, right? Say impact in the chat if that is something that you would like to see grow from the time that you're investing, not only in your business, but also in your life. Okay. Yay. I'm seeing lots of impact there. Good. Okay. I do want to make this one disclaimer. In the past, if you've joined me for a challenge, I gave you a workbook. I decided this time I was not going to do the workbook thing because I want you to listen to what God wants to say to you. There are no right answers, right? I'm going to challenge a lot of beliefs today, and we're going to get into a lot of things over the next couple of days. I want you to write down your takeaways. I call them ahas. And then I'm going to challenge you this, to take a few minutes when we're done, ideally before the next distraction comes your way, right? And prayerfully reflect back and then implement them on the daily homework. It's only going to take you a couple minutes, but that is how they really get rooted in our minds, so that way, that's how we're showing up as this faith-fueled CEO of our business. And I'm also going to encourage you to have your video on, right? Because if you're doing something else while we're here, guess what? You're not going to get everything you came for. I promise. About an hour-ish each day is going to be good ROI in your time. And I'm like you. I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago. I had a whole bunch of other things I need to do. So I was like, trying to get stuff done while I was listening. And guess what? I didn't give it my full focus. I didn't get out of it what I wanted to. So one other warning I just want to say is be prepared to lose a little bit of sleep. Like what? I know, because when I am part of a training where the leader really knows what she's talking about and she pours out in a really valuable way and it relates directly to me, like she's speaking to me, I don't know about you, but it's hard to turn my brain off, right? Like when I lay down, then I'm like replaying all those different things, right? And I get excited about these new possibilities and what's coming next. So sorry, not sorry if you lose some sleep over the next couple of days. So while we're together, we're going to talk about our time, how to find the time, how to protect your time, how to focus your time, how to increase the ROI in your time. And we're also going to talk about you being a CEO. So let me at least give you this quick new definition if you don't know this already yet. Okay. It is a Christ-empowered operator of your God-given life and business. Okay. So we're not talking, the chief executive officer that the world defines it as. When I call you a CEO from now on, it is a Christ-empowered operator of the life and business that God has called you to. And what do we know about CEOs? They create the vision, they make the decisions, they take the action. But our kind of CEOs, the Christ-empowered ones, don't do it on their own, right? Because we understand who we are in Christ and what he's called us to and how that ties into bigger kingdom impact. And that affects everything about where we invest our time. And that's what we're going to be unpacking all this week: our heart set, our mindset, our skill set. And as we do that and we keep planting those seeds, we are going to increase our CEO impact. So if you're ready to show up as that kind of CEO, put CEO in the chat, right? So I know that you are here, okay? I've even got a sweatshirt sitting next to me that's going to go to somebody this week that says, I'm the CEO, right? And when you wear that, you're going to be able to tell people what that means, okay? And when we talk about time, it's not going to be like the world does, right? They're running around chasing the time they think they need and they think they don't have. That's why they always feel busy and they're always on that hamster wheel. And maybe you have been that way too. But we are going to look at our time from a decidedly biblical perspective. We're going to listen to what God says about our time and what's our part in it, right? How we partner together to see the growth, not just for the here and now, which is really important, so those tangible things we can measure in our business, but also for eternity, right? Some bigger things. And we're going to learn where to invest our time and get this, ready for this, where not to. Who would love to know what to say no to with your time and how to say no without the guilt? We're going to be diving into that tomorrow. Okay. So drop me in the chat. Yes, I'm seeing some me there. Okay. So I just real quick before we dive in, want to just share a real short snippet of my story. I'm sure many of you have heard it either on the podcast or other trainings that I've done before, but I just want to let you know, I was the busyness poster child. I was literally so busy running my life and business that I wasn't even there, right? I was doing all the things for all the people. I had so much that I always had to do, and there was never enough time. And what happened for me was that I constantly had this feeling of a ball in my throat. And I thought, at first, I'm just not chewing my food slow enough. I'm not drinking enough. I just need to, take care of these things. After nearly a year, I started to get concerned that maybe there was something growing in there that I needed to find out about, right? So I promised my friends I would go to the doctor. I did. He tried all kinds of things, from medication for acid reflux to scoping things and everything in between. And he sat me down one day. I remember him just looking at me and he's like, Lissa, there is no ball in your throat. I put something down there. There is literally nothing there. But what you do have is hystericus globus. And he just kind of had this smile on his face and he sat there. And so, of course, I'm like, what's hystericus globus, right? Because you almost want to laugh hearing that word. And he goes, well, globus means ball. He said, so you have this feeling of a ball in your throat. And hystericus, and he wound his finger like this. He goes, it's in your head, right? He goes, hystericus is where they get hysterectomy from because they thought women were going crazy in that time of life, right? And he graciously offered me a pill to fix my hystericus globus. But I graciously turned it down because I knew that the problem was in my heart. And I will just tell you, at that time, I was the time management poster child as well. I had all the time blocks, the planners, the checklists, all the systems and things like that. And yet it wasn't real. The answer and the problem wasn't in my calendar and in my checklist and keeping those rightly ordered. It was in my heart because I was wearing busy like a badge of honor. I was like validating my worth by the fact that I was doing, right? And even though I was really busy checking a lot of boxes, you guys know what? My business wasn't really growing. And to be honest, neither were my relationships or many other things in my life. When I look back, it was really mostly my guilt, my fatigue, and my disappointment. And I was really missing out on all these things and all these people that I said mattered most. So I am so thankful for that diagnosis and can tell you that I don't have that sensation of it in my throat anymore. Like, God got my attention. I decided I didn't want to end up at the end of my life with regret that I'd been busy about the wrong things. And I've learned to slow down, to get off the hamster wheel of just always doing and trust him with the time he's given me to bring the ROI. Now, do I work hard? Yes, I work hard. And we're going to talk about that this week. When we're working, and we're not, right? But it's doing it in the right way with the right heart and the right beliefs about not only my time, but who it is that's given it to me and why he's given it to me. And that is why now my mission is to equip busy Christian women just like you, right? Those of us who have all these things to do and only 24 hours to do them, right? We've got life and all the things that come along with that. We've got this business we want to grow to help you to redeem your time and go from, we'll be talking about this quite a bit, never enough to more than enough. Okay. And then start really seeing the ROI in your time, not only in your business, but also in your kingdom, right? So that's what I'm called to do. And I am excited to help you live out your calling as you really get a new perspective and on your time and start uncovering this time that you've been praying for. So if you are ready to find some time this week, then drop time in the chat. And I'm just going to say, I'll kind of keep glancing over here, as well as I'm kind of watching all of you on the screen. But feel free to drop ahas in the chat, drop questions. I will try and catch them as they come. But if I miss something, I'll go back at the end and make sure that I scroll through and things like that as well. So, okay, where we invest our time is a reflection of what we value. So the fact that you are here shows that you value your time. You value this calling that God has given on your life when we talk about callings tomorrow, and you value, right, the work that you're called to do as well as the life you're called to live, right? And the way that we invest our time is going to impact everything, right? Everything. So you investing your time this week here is going to not only build you, it's also going to build his kingdom. And I promise you, this challenge is going to be a really good investment of time. Maybe you have to tell me, maybe possibly even the best investment of time that you've made this year. Like, how do I know? Because I've been in all those challenges, webinars, events, conferences, right? That like, I was really inspired and excited when I sat there, but then I went back to my everyday life and nothing changed. Has anyone else ever been there? Like, yep, signed up for that. Yep, went that. I even have the notebook over here with my notes still. And it just, life goes from, oh, okay, yep, this is possible, to, oh, wow, like I'm right back to life and I have no idea what to do. And I go right back to my old patterns and habits. That's called the law of entropy. Things go from order to disorder, right? That natural progression when we try to stack new habits on top of old beliefs. So we're going to talk about that today, right? And that's why we're going to spend some extra time today really working on this part before we work on the calendar. Because our thoughts and actions need to be in alignment with what God says is true. And then we're going to steer those results in the right direction. Okay. So the other thing I just want to share with you, yep, old beliefs, right? We're going to replace them. I'm going to give you a really great analogy that I think many of you are familiar with. So hold on for that. Also this week, this is a 4-day challenge. After day 3, I'm going to invite you to an opportunity to really take things to the next level. when it comes to increasing your impact and your income and your ROI of your time, because you're going to have a high level of intentionality and accountability. Who knows you need accountability, right? Like a lot of us are solopreneurs and we know it can get really lonely and it's really easy to let ourselves off the hook or get off in the ditch or, who knows, never even get started on things. So if you are that person who knows that, yes, I need accountability, right? And I want to make sure that I've got the right things around me, and then drop me in the chat because I'm along the way going to be showing you how to do that. And then on Thursday, after our general session, I'm going to be doing a special session for those of you who would like to know more about that opportunity. And I'm only opening up a certain number of spots. So it's going to be really important that you are there if that's something that is of interest to you. And you're going to know that if that's for you. Okay. So this is that special link I was talking about on your challenge dashboard. So if you go to your challenge dashboard, at the very top, it says apply to access the CEO impact bonus. Okay. That is just a way for me to see that you've raised your hand and you're telling me a little bit about you and your time and your business. And then I'm going to send you an invitation to join us for that. And if there are some spots that are left over on Friday, then I will definitely open it up to everyone else who's in here. But I'm looking for CEOs who really want to grow. Okay. So that gives you just under 48 hours to take 5 minutes and complete that application. Okay. So I usually say don't multitask, but if now is the time and you're like, okay, well, it's top of mind, I'm going to hop over there, then yes, you're welcome to do that. Let me just drop the link to the dashboard in the chat. Good thing I saved it. And then you can just click on there. Okay. But here's what I know. When we step out in faith with God, that's when we see the impact, right? So often we're back here holding out in fear, right? And the unknowns and the what ifs, and I only have so much, isn't all of that, right? But we want to really step out in faith with God and see the growth that he's going to bring. So I'm excited to see who's going to be in the room with me that day. And if you can't make it work to be on with us live afterwards, it's okay. I will make sure that we record it. Speaking of which, okay, the replays are going to be, you can directly access them on that challenge dashboard. After each day, I will upload them on there. I'm also going to put them on the podcast. So if you would like to be able to either listen back or if you miss one, listen to it on, with just your earbuds in and not sitting in front of a screen, that option is going to be there for you as well. But of course, like I said, I'm going to encourage you to do that within 24 hours because we don't want training graveyards. Who's got training graveyards, right? Those challenges or courses or programs that you started or you meant to start, but you never finished and you never really even opened, if you're honest, right? This isn't going to be like this because when we put together what we're going to learn with the right kind of support, this combination is going to change so much for you. And I cannot wait to see, as I've been praying over you and what the outcome of this is going to be in our 4 days together. So you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Who here is normally an overthinker or a procrastinator or a shiny object chaser? I see some hands going up. Okay, you can say me in the chat or just raise your hand. Okay, I want to challenge you. Show up fully present. Don't overthink. Take action on what you learn each day by doing the homework inside the community. And that's how it's not going to just go in one ear and out the other. Okay, it's going to get into our heart and we're actually going to see the change. Isn't that what we want? We don't want to stay in the same place where we always feel like we're chasing the clock or a calendar. We're always on the hamster wheel. So if you want change, drop change in the chat so I know that you're with me, okay? And let me grab a drink. All right. Why did I call this a challenge? Because yes, a challenge could be I'm gonna, fight you, but really it's a call to confrontation. It's calling something into question. It's a calling to not stay in the same place, right? I don't want you leaving here believing you don't have enough time or time is this limited resource that you have to, really work really hard to keep managed. Okay, because that's not where we want to be. And that's not where God's called us to be. Okay, we're going to be talking about the island of not enough time, right? And we're going to talk about the island of more than enough time. Okay, and we're going to be talking about how to go from one to the other. And in order to do that, we're going to have to challenge our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions, right? And that's going to take time. So if you are here and it's day one, already decide I'm here for all 4 days, whether that's via live or replay, because that's how we're going to do that. And then perfectly consider the opportunity to stick with us for longer and get that. So that way we're going from never enough to more than enough, right? Who wants that? Drop more than enough in the chat. And I'm going to pull out my little whiteboard markers. I was going to do some fun colors, but some of the colors I don't think show up really well for whatever reason with the camera. So I'm just going to start off with black, at least for this part. I've been talking about 2 islands, okay? So let me draw. I used to be a teacher, just so you know. So we'll see how well I can draw on the board again. Well, we're going to have 2 islands here. So here's island number 1. And just for lack of, a whole bunch of room, here's island number 2. Okay. Woohoo, that's pretty, Melissa. Oh, well, it works. Okay, island number 1 is called Never Enough. Let me ask you, never enough what? There's no right answer. Drop in the chat. What are some things that you often feel like, maybe you don't say it out loud, there's never enough of this, but it just feels like there's never enough. Drop some things in the chat. What is it that, let me try this a little bit soon. Oh, of course I unhooked the back. There we go. What are some things that it feels like there's not enough to, never enough to get everything done? Okay, yeah, never enough time. Daylight, okay, money, patience. Ooh, I'm never enough. Maybe who here doesn't feel like sometimes you know enough, or you have enough followers or downloads or clicks or sales or clients or customers, right? Like, yeah, it's like very, very common for us to be on this island of never enough, right? Like there's just always, I'm always somehow behind, right? Whoever feels behind, like I'm behind, I'm trying to catch up. Time, money, help, yeah, support, sleep, for sure. Fun, yes, self-control. Okay, these are good things, you guys. The problem is when we're on Never Enough Island, we're literally like swimming in circles, you know, around this place, right? Because we're chasing our not enoughness and we're just going in circles. Okay. We're chasing that. Yeah, I don't have, my time is not enough. We're chasing that. I'm not doing enough. We're chasing that. I'm not enough. You see how that progression goes, right? And what's the result of that? What's the result of going in circles and circles trying to chase our not enoughness? It's we're exhausted, we're tired, yeah, we're stressed out, we're worn out, we're burned out, right? We get nowhere. Yes, you're right. Yeah. I love the Message translation. We're overwhelmed. I love the Message translation in Matthew 11:28-30, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy burdened." And in the Message, it says, "All who are stressed out, worn out, and burned out." That's most people. That is most people on the planet, including those of us who already know him, right? And many people just resign themselves to this is just how it is, right? I just have to keep circling this island and someday maybe I'll eventually get enough and I'll be able to like stop. Except that doesn't really ever happen, right? Because there's always something more, or we're always feeling the lack and things like that. Okay, so our other island, let me see if we can, okay, this one is more than enough. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that color. It looks lighter than it did on the marker. Okay, so there's more than enough islands. Okay, what would be nice to have more than enough of? What would you love to have more than enough of? Rest. Yes, says the mom of 2 young boys who's homeschooling them as well as running a business and supporting, you know, family and all of that, for sure. Time to enjoy other activities. Yeah, and people, right? Money. Okay, yeah, let's be honest, you guys. Money is something that we need, right? And we're going to talk about how when we increase our impact, that also flows into increasing our income because there's value that's happening, right? And so it's okay for us to be bringing in more income because of a direct reflection of that. Time, money, sleep, fun, patience, confidence, direction. Ooh, I love that. Fun and money for sure. Healthy disciplines, right? I just was reading yesterday in Ephesians 3 that talked about like how God just always is more than enough. Ephesians 3:20, who knows it? And, you know, to him who goes exceedingly abundantly beyond all we could ask or imagine. That's 4 superlatives. I was an English teacher back in the day. That means like those extra adjectives. To him be the glory. Amen. Okay. Amen. Drop that in the chat, right? What is the result when we are trusting him and resting on him being enough over here? It's the opposite of what you were just telling me before of I'm circling this island, right? If you look at the rest of Matthew 11:28-30, it says, I will give you rest. And what kind of rest does he talk about? Does anybody know? He gets really specific. He says, you will find rest for your soul. Not just rest, I got to lay down and close my eyes and got, you know, my 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Not just rest, I got to take a nap, power nap, but you will find rest for your souls, which is an inside job, which doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be laying horizontal, right, to be experiencing that rest, right? And what I love is that in that passage, he says, the way we do that is by taking up his yoke, his way of doing life. Yes, rest for my soul is also peace, for sure, because we're not chasing after all these things that we think we need. because our Heavenly Father already knows we need them, right? That he talks about that in Matthew 6, right? And this is not like rest, like taking a vacation and just laying on the beach here on this more than enough island. Okay, I'm just here for the suntan, just taking up space. But it's resting in the fact that we are trusting that he is enough for what he's called us to. So I want you to think about this. What difference would living on more than enough island with God, okay, we're not over here by ourselves, make for you? What difference would living on more than enough island and not no longer the I'm circling never enough island make for you? How would it impact your soul? How would it impact your health? How would it impact your relationships, your business, your finances? Like, I'm going to challenge you to prayerfully think about this question and how that would change things in your life, your business, your soul. What life would be like on the more than enough island. In fact, that's going to be your homework today. Okay? Because if never enough island is where we're drowning, right? And more than enough island is where we're back floating, right? This is where God is inviting us to. Okay? Now, let me just give you a caution. Don't settle for somewhere in between. Okay? This in between, and I don't have a lot of space, in between here because of how I drew my islands. So forgive me that, there's not a lot of space in here, but I call that just barely enough, right? Just barely enough is like treading water, just barely enough to keep my head above water, right? That's what it feels like a lot when we're trying to, just make our time enough and manage it and get through the day and try and keep everything right in line. I don't know about you, but I don't want to hang out treading water for very long because eventually I'm going to go under, right? So right now I want you to decide, where do you want to be? You want to be circling never enough? Do you want to be treading in barely enough? Or do you want to be with God and resting in him on more than enough? Feel free to drop that in the chat and make that declaration and that decision. Okay. And then we're going to talk about this next step that I know is coming up for you right now. Okay, Lissa, great. We're here. That sounds amazing. How do we get there? Right? That's where we go back to that Matthew passage. Jesus offers us a way, literally a bridge. So we don't have to be treading the water in the middle there. We can just hop on that bridge with him, right? What I love, I've been watching The Chosen lately, and it's just been so neat to visualize what it was like for these guys that Jesus called out of what they were doing. And they were in that, I'm busy and distracted and, and doing all these things, and called them to come follow him and to learn his way of doing life and to change who they are, to change their identity and to change the purpose of their time. And so I've been reading a book by John Mark Comer called Practicing the Way. And in there, he talks about disciples, especially back in that day, they would structure their life around three things. Okay, you ready for these? Being with their rabbi, becoming like their rabbi, and doing as their rabbi did. Now, did they do it perfectly? This is where I love, if you've watched The Chosen, you see how imperfect they are and how they still question and how they still, don't understand and how they still try to keep going back to, the ways they've done things and stuff like that. But the more they walk with him, right? The more we're walking with him over this bridge, the more we're able to not keep running back to what feels comfortable, what's what we're used to, right? And the more we can keep going in that direction, right? So there are three parts to that. We're growing our faith, we're shifting our identity, and we're getting in community, right? He didn't just call one person, he called 12, and then there were others who came around, and then we had even bigger crowds that came around, and it's really kind of fun. And I know they probably took a lot of liberty as to how they did this, but there were times Jesus was like, I'm going off to bed, and his guys were sitting around talking, right? And helping each other to grow in their belief and in their identity and all of that. So what a beautiful picture, right, of what he has invited us to and how we're doing it. And that is amazing. And this is why we are CEOs, right? They were fishermen, right? Fishing for fish. And he's like, I'm going to make you fishers of men, right? And how did that happen? Just because they got a new fishing pole? Just because they got a different color fishing line or a different lure or something like that? No, because they spent time with him and they walked with him and they started learning how to approach life in time and all the things that he was doing. And that's why we are called to be the CEOs. Okay, so let me go back to that definition real quick, just to make sure this is solid in your mind. CEO means a Christ-empowered operator. right? When Christ invites us into that relationship, it transforms everything, our beliefs, our identity, our purpose, just like those disciples, right? And then he told his disciples before he left, like, it's actually a good thing I'm going away, because then the Spirit is going to come, right? And the Spirit now dwells in us, and that's who fuels our thoughts, our feelings, our desires, right? And what I love is when you look at scripture from Genesis 1 to Revelation 21, it's all about God being with us, right? And it's all about this invitation. It's him reaching out and saying, this divine invitation, I am with you. Will you be with me? And there's this active participation part, right, that comes along with it. And when he is with us, that leads our vision. It affects how we make decisions. It affects what we do and don't do, and then ultimately affects our results. And what are we the CEOs of? Of the life and business that he has called us to. What a beautiful thing, right? Who wants to be known as a CEO, right? I want you to drop CEO in the chat. And every time that you see CEO this week when you're with me, or from here on out, I want you to think, this is not just, chief executive officer doing all the tasks, checking all the boxes, chasing the not enoughness, and delegating what I can to my team. This is a Christ-empowered operator of the business that you have been called to live. And CEOs know what they're called to. They know what to do. They know when to do it and where they're going, right? They show up like you are today. They're believing they're CEOs, not because they are enough, but because he is enough, right? That's the only reason that we can do this, right? Now, as we start moving from here to here, we have to watch out in these waters, because guess what happens? The enemy likes to send out his little sharks, right? Have you ever had that happen? Like you start really working on some faith stuff, or you're really starting to step out in faith, and all of a sudden all these things start happening, and you're like, you're tempted to run back, right? Because it gets a little scary. The enemy does not like when we are challenging our current beliefs. He would rather keep us on Never Enough Island, right? Because over time we've been telling ourselves, and he's just keeps putting this in repeat, I don't have time, or when I have time, or if I have time, or if only I had time. And the more we think something, the more we believe it, right? Okay, but it's not about what's just, we don't want to keep swirling in those same places, right? And it's not also about just like writing out, I have time 100 times. I'm not going to ask you to do that. I've done that before. It doesn't work because it didn't really transform me, right? I just got my hand really tired writing in my notebooks. But I get it. It's really easy to say, yes, Lissa, I have time. God has called me to this business. This is great. I want to go to More Than Enough Island. Until what happens? You get up against a distraction, or someone's demand on your time, or your device that, sucks you into the black hole. And then you're swimming for your life right back to the same old island where you've always been. So I'm going to teach you how to identify those thoughts and beliefs, and how to take them captive to the obedience of Christ. You may be familiar with 2 Corinthians 10:5. It says, we demolish arguments and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Because the enemy was trying to keep those believers in Corinth from doing life with God by keeping them believing lies, right? In fact, the enemy wants to keep us on this island of not enough, never enough, by believing the lie that we don't have time. Or if we had more time, things would be better, right? John 10:10 says, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And I believe that's in every area. And right now, I think the hottest commodity is our time and our attention, right? Because if he can keep us busy and distracted, we're of no threat to him. We're of a little use to the kingdom. But what does Jesus say in the second part of John 10:10? But I have come to give you life, life to the full, not a life that's too full. Do you see the difference? Life to the full versus a life that's too full. Okay, so drop life to the full in the chat if that is the one that you would rather have versus a life that's too full. But I'm going to warn you, right? Like as we start embracing new beliefs, especially ones that are based in God's truth, the enemy is going to try to distract us with old ones. So back to my illustration from The Chosen, that we've been watching. There was a scene that we watched recently that really stood out to me and made me think about what we're doing here today. When Jesus was talking to his disciples and telling them, you can't put new wine in old wineskins. Are you familiar with that, right? It's in several different gospels, right? It's kind of lost on us, because who has their wine in their house stored in a wineskin? Anyone? No, if you have wine in your house, it's in a glass bottle, right? Like we don't understand this thing. But when the people of that day, they would have totally understood this, right? And Jesus said to them, no one pours new wine into old wineskins, because what will happen? The new wine will burst the skins. The wine's going to run out and then it's going to be ruined, right? You're going to waste a whole bunch of stuff. So he was teaching them they couldn't just layer some Jesus on top of some old covenant and some Pharisee laws, right? Because that was their way that they were believing and how they were living. Because life in the kingdom requires getting rid of the old ways of thinking and taking on his way of doing that, right? So this week, we're not just going to stack new beliefs and actions on top of your old ones, because then you're just going to waste time. When life happens, guess what? It's all going to spill up and you're going to spill out and you're going to have a mess. We want to replace those old beliefs and actions with new ones. Okay, we want to have new wineskins. If you want some new wineskins, drop that in the chat, right? That's why just repeating affirmations is not going to work, right? We need to make sure we take those thoughts captive, and I'm going to teach you that tool here in just a minute. So day one, we're focusing on our perspective on time, okay? Think you don't have time, it's time to think again, right? We're going to look at our relationship. Day two, it's called Sorry We're Closed. Stop apologizing for your limits. We are going to look at how to protect your time once we see the value of our time, how to protect it with healthy boundaries. And no, it's not selfish. So for those of you who said you want to learn to say no, make sure you're here tomorrow. On day three, we're going to talk about why multitasking is not our superpower, it's our kryptonite, and how we can actually focus our time with a really simple tool. And on day four, we're going to talk about pulling this all together. How do we actually show up, believing and living like we are a CEO and getting the results? Okay, before we go into the tool I want to show you today, I just want to give you a quick little review about your time. Okay, now, here's the truth right now. Could sum it all up in this. You get 24 hours, right? You get 24 hours. It's been like that since Genesis 1:1, right? But the problem has never been how much time we have. Because in Genesis 1, it also said that everything God had made was very good. So 24 hours is not just good enough, it's great, right? It's really about our relationship with it. That's why the solution is not found in our clocks and calendars, but in our hearts. Okay, so I was recently reading The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, and he takes you through a really quick history of time. Okay, there's always been 24 hours in a day, but it wasn't until 200 BC when the first Casio came on the market. You know what that was? The sundial. Yep, the sundial. People started noticing and even complaining about the effect that this new technology had on society. So he shares this poem, which I thought was hilarious, okay? It says, it's by a guy named Platus. Let me read it to you. It says, the gods confound the man who first found out how to distinguish hours. Confound him too, who in this place set up a sundial to cut and hack my days so wretchedly into small portions. Right? Like next time you feel like you're running late or you're behind, like pull out that little Platus quote, right? Like, so already they started seeing time felt different, even though nothing changed about their time. Then it was a long time until there was actually the first public clock. They didn't yet have clocks on their wrists, right? 1370, first public clock in Germany, right? Now time was no longer natural. What do you think they paid attention to before that to know what time it was? The sun, right? Sun goes down, so do you. Sun gets up, so do you, right? Like there's this rhythm to the day and year, and it's governed by God, not by man, okay? But now they're starting to pay attention. They're starting to see this clock, and now they're focusing on the time, not just what it's time for. We'll talk about that in a couple of days. Then in 1879, we have an invention that changed a whole lot of things. I love the fact that your grandfather used to tell us time by the sun, right? Do you guys know what was invented that changed everything? AKA, it gave you the ability to stay up past the sun. What do you think that was? The light bulb. Woohoo! I don't have to go to bed when the sun goes to bed, and I don't have to worry about burning down my house because we know they had candles and stuff before that, right? Like, okay, I want you to listen to this. Before the invention of the light bulb, the average person slept, you ready? 11 hours a night. That's average, which means that was the middle, which means there were people that were getting 12, 13, 14, 15 hours of sleep a night. Right now, we are lucky and good if we get 7. Right? Wow, what a difference. Okay, this I find really interesting and a little saddening. In 1960, they actually had a Senate subcommittee made up of futurists that told the Senate subcommittee that because of all the time-saving devices we had, by 1985, listen to this, the average American would work 22 hours a week, 27 weeks a year. And our biggest problem in the future would be too much leisure. You guys, I saw the chat. So many of you said not making time for fun and enjoyable things and stuff like that. They thought that was gonna be our biggest problem. We would have too much time for fun. It's kind of sad, right? What the outcome of that has been. But then there was one more invention that really shifted everything in 2007. Who knows what was invented in 2007? Ta-da! The iPhone, right? We had a whole conversation on this in episode 253, right? About how much time we give to this thing. Average person, 70 days, DAYS, of your life per year goes to this. That's average, which means some of you are upwards of 150 days. That's 24-hour periods. What did you get for that? And we say we don't have time. Like, even if you're not average, this is a great time to not be average. This is a great time to be below average. But even still, right? Like, how much more time did we have before we had this thing following us around like an extra appendage, right? So you can go back and listen to the episode 253 if you want to get some more ideas on that. But here's the thing about time. All along, God has laid 24 hours in front of us every day, like he laid manna before the children of Israel. Every single day. He hasn't missed one since Genesis 1. And no matter how much they complained or compared, when they finally trusted that the one who gave it to them knew what he was doing, what did they find? It was more than enough, even though it didn't make sense, even though it didn't look like it when it was laying on the ground, right? And what I love is this. When Jesus teaches his disciples to pray in Matthew 5, he tells them to ask the Father to give us our daily bread. Or in other translations, give us this day what we need for this day. Now, when my pastor was preaching through the Sermon on the Mount about a year ago, and he asked, what is your daily bread? What is it that you are dependent on God to provide for you every single day? Do you know what I immediately thought of? Yes, you can catch the rest of the replay. Thanks for being here. My time, right? I immediately thought of time. We can't make it on our own. Anyone can make their own time? I can't save up from yesterday because I didn't need it all, God. So I'm just going to save that and put in a bank, right? Anybody got a time bank you can actually pull from, right? We can't borrow from tomorrow because, oh, I won't need it tomorrow. Can I have it today? We have to trust that God is going to lay another 24 hours in front of us every single day. And isn't he faithful in that, right? And he's going to continue to be faithful in that. So why do we spend so much time worrying about it and trying to manage it and feeling like there's never enough, right? Time is one of the ways that we are dependent on our Father in heaven. And he's not only the author of time, he is beyond time. And he's even put this sense of eternity in our hearts, like it talks about in Ecclesiastes 3, this knowing that there is a time beyond the time we can measure. And that's why the solution for us as his daughters of going from never enough island to more than enough island is not just in grabbing out a new planner. Who loves to go to Target this time of year, or Staples, when all the kids are getting school supplies and you like to get all your fun new stuff, right? Some people are saying, no, not me. But some of us, ooh, we like that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But if I'm picking up that new planner or that new pen or whatever with the belief that I don't have enough time, it's not going to make a difference, right? So we've established the fact that we have an entire 24 hours a day. I want you to start being thankful for that, right? Being grateful for the time you have. And here is where we go, okay, so now what do I do with it? So what if I told you the way to find more time is not getting better at managing those 24 hours? Who feels relieved because you're not good at managing it anyway? Or you're tired of trying to manage it all and you'd rather have, right? You'd rather have an easier and lighter way to live life and get through the days and the weeks and all of that, right? Because time is really not the problem. We just said that, right? We are the problem. And when what we believe about our time and our enoughness is the problem, which is why managing is not solution. Do you guys know what management literally means? As an English teacher, I went and looked it up. It means to keep under control. Who's ever been a manager like at a fast food restaurant or a retail store or whatever, and your job was to keep everything under control in that store, right? Or in that restaurant, and it was all on you, right? Like that is exhausting. And can you perfectly keep things managed at all times? No, it is a constant game of what I call whack-a-mole, right? You get things in order and this pops up and then this pops up and then you take care of that fire and that fire starts and this one goes out, like it's literally this just like, and you get to the end of the day and everything's clean and then you come back the next day to work and what happens? Same thing. It's just, it is exhausting managing all the time, right? Now, many of you may have heard me use this illustration that God showed me a couple months ago from Matthew 25 in the parable of the talents. We often call it the parable of the talents. I call it the parable of the servants, right? This master's going on a long trip. He entrusts his possessions into the hands of 3 of his servants. We don't hear him leave any instructions, but we know by his response when he gets back what his purpose was, right? He was not just giving it to them to manage, because what did one of them do? He kept it under control. He went and hid it, right? So that nothing would steal it. He wouldn't get lost. It wouldn't blow away in the wind. It wouldn't, right? Whatever. I've got, my precious, I've got to keep this, right? Out of fear, that he wouldn't have enough to give back to the master. But what did the other two do? They, first of all, knew that what they had been given was not theirs. And they knew that they were called to steward it. The definition of stewarding something is to take over someone else's things, resources, right? With two goals in mind. Number one, to protect them, but number two, to enlarge them. If you are giving something to someone to steward, right, you don't just want them to just hide it away. The expectation was that it was going to grow and produce something, right? And we can see from the master's response when he got back, it didn't matter that one, started off with 5 and had 10, and the other one started off with 2 and had 4. It wasn't about how much they had. It was how they trusted the one who had given it to them and how they had invested it by faith, right? And then the growth that produced that was building the master's kingdom. And what a beautiful picture of the difference between managing time and stewarding time. Because managing is about short-term results, right? Stewarding is about long-term investment. Managing is like rigidity. I got to keep everything just in line. Stewarding allows me to be responsive to what the needs are. Managing is about efficiency, right? We got to be efficient, right? And make all this happen, right? But stewarding is about effectiveness. I love this one. Managing is about productivity. Like that is a buzzword out there. I want to be more productive. I want productivity, right? Like, and there's nothing wrong with that word, except I've kind of redefined it. I think stewarding is about purposivity. Don't try putting that into Google because it's not going to come up. They're going to try and reroute you back to productivity, but it's having a purpose behind what you do. And here's the beautiful thing about stewarding time, not just trying to manage it. It removes that burden because it's not all on us. It reduces the overwhelm because with him, there's always more than enough, right? And it restores that joy when you're exhausted all the time and you're just trying to keep everything going, right? Because it's about something that's bigger than us. And I had this thought as I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the islands the other day when I was driving. I was like, what are we missing out on when we settle for just enough? When we settle for managing? Because I don't believe, even though some of you like me have done a really good job managing things, managing your time for a really long time, like what am I missing out on over here? Right? What's the abundance that God has over here? Because he owns it all, right? That if I just let go of managing and like with open hands now, receive this gift of time, this abundant gift, and say, okay, Lord, where do you want me to invest this? Like what is it that we're missing out on? So I want to encourage you to not just settle for time management. Time management is getting through the day, getting through the week, checking off the box, right? Keeping all the people alive, getting your bills paid, things like that, right? We want to make sure that we are truly stewarding and seeing this gift. I'm not going to have time to go into a lot of this right now, but 2 Corinthians 9 is a beautiful chapter where Paul is teaching about generosity. And in there, right, he tells them that God is the supplier and the multiplier, and that he is the one who brings the growth, and it's all for his glory. And he's talking about money specifically in that, but I think the same thing applies to our time, right? He's the supplier of our time. I didn't make it up, right? And he's the one who can multiply it, right? Like, I don't know if you found this yet to be true, but when I don't feel like 24 hours is enough, but I trust him with it, like with those open hands, he makes my 24 hours more than enough. And often when I do it that way, instead of thinking I'm being efficient and productive and all of that, just trying to manage it all and check on my boxes, like the result is exponentially, right? More than I could have asked or imagined, like we talked about earlier. And what a beautiful, beautiful reminder. So the next time the enemy whispers that lie in your ear, you don't have time. You're going to say, get behind me, Satan, right? You're going to take that thought captive. So let me show you the steer belief map if you have not seen this before, because this is a really simple way to grab those thoughts, whether they're about your time, whether about, who you are, what you're called to, anything this could be used for, okay? Because what we're thinking, it becomes what we believe, which then leads to how we feel and what we do or don't do. And then that's going to lead to our results. Okay. And this is so simple that you can use this in a prayer journal. You can use it in a notebook. You can even do it on a Post-it or a napkin. Okay. So what you're going to do on your piece of paper is you're going to write steer up and down, STEER. Okay. So steer like that. Okay. Now I specifically wrote it under Never Enough Island because we're going to start with where we are right now. Okay. So S is for your situation. Here's the rule. Your situation is always neutral. Okay. So it's just a fact. It's not what you think about it. It's just what it is. So maybe this is my time and my business. Okay. T is your thought. What is that thought that keeps coming up? What is that thought that you're thinking on repeat or keeps getting in there? Maybe it's that there's never enough time. Maybe it's I'm behind. Maybe it's I can't stop working because I'm not going to get it all done. You write down what that thought is that keeps coming up for you around your time and your business. Sometimes they're really subtle. Because again, it's not always like the blatant, like, I don't have enough time. But man, if I had time, man, when I have time, if only I had time, like sometimes it's in a little bit more subtle way, but it's still essentially saying, I don't have enough. The first E is for emotion. So what is the feeling that you are feeling when you're thinking this thought on repeat? So the one example I gave was I'm behind about your time in your business. Many of you said, right, I'm overwhelmed. So you can write down what yours is. The second E is execution. What action am I taking or not taking when I'm feeling overwhelmed because I'm believing I'm behind about my time and my business? I don't know about you. I keep running. I keep checking boxes. I, compare myself to others. I chase shiny objects, right? Whatever that is. And then the R is the result. So what is the result when I'm always running, feeling overwhelmed because I believe I'm behind about the time in my business? Guess what? I keep not having enough time and I'm not seeing my business grow, right? And what's interesting is that our results always are a reflection, my arrowhead did not turn out well there, of what we've been thinking and believing. So you can always draw an arrow from your result back up to there. Now, here's the cool thing. We're not staying there, okay? So when I actually have you do this on paper, and I'm just because of the play behind, I have you do it up vertically like this. So steer, and then we have a truth, and then we're gonna do steer again. Okay, so our truth is gonna be like our bridge here, right? But what does God say is true about the situation? Thanks, Gail. About that time in our business. I just read this the other day. So you could use the 2 Corinthians 9. That's a great place to go. 2 Corinthians 9:8. I love this one that I just read the other day in the Message. In Psalm 37:19, listen to this. Even in time of disaster, he will watch over them and they will always have more than enough no matter what happens. Psalm 37:19, right? They will always have more than enough. When I read that more than enough, I'm like, oh, yes, 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 right? This is not prosperity gospel. Like, okay, we're going to all of a sudden have, bazillion of dollars in the bank and all of that, right? But we have more than enough, right? God gives us everything that we need. Psalm 37:19. So that's going to be my truth that I'm going to put on here. Okay. Then what we do is we don't stay thinking all this stuff. We do the steer again. I didn't equidistance mine. So forgive me. That's going to be a little smashed over here. Okay. So now based on this truth or whatever truth you put in there, we're going to redo it. Okay, situation is always the same. It's still that neutral time in my business, okay? But what could your new thought be? What could that new thing you be thinking that's based on this truth that you just put on that bridge? So if I'm looking at the fact that God will watch over me, even if life happens, even in time of disaster, and I will always have more than enough, right? God has given me more than enough, right? Deeper enough there. Okay. And then how are you feeling? What's the emotion? If I am believing that God has given me more than enough for what he's called me to, how am I going to be feeling? Am I still going to be feeling overwhelmed? I'm going to be at peace, like some of you guys said earlier, expectant, trusting, right? So write down what that emotion would be. And then what's my execution? What am I going to do or not do? Am I going to keep chasing? Am I going to keep going in circles around Never Enough Island? No, right? I'm going to trust. I'm going to believe. I'm going to do Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God. He had just talked about those without God, they're chasing after all these things, but your heavenly Father knows what you need. So seek first his kingdom and all these will be added to you as well, right? So I'm going to seek God. I'm going to invest my time in that relationship. And then I'm going to take action with what he's given me, with him, right? So I'm just going to write seek here. I'm going to say seek plus go. Okay, since I don't have a lot of space there. And then what is my result? What am I noticing about my time? I'm seeing an ROI, right? I'm seeing the growth. I'm seeing the things that are coming from what it is that he's given me, right? So this is a very simple tool that, again, you can just do on a Post-it note or a small piece of paper or something like that. I encourage you to make this a part of either like your morning time with the Lord and just say, okay, Lord, you don't always have to start with the situation. Sometimes you're like, okay, this is the situation I want to do this about. Sometimes you start with a thought. Here's a thought I keep noticing coming up. Okay, so if this is what I'm thinking, what's the situation that this is, what's the neutral situation it's about? And then you can go through it. Or sometimes you notice the feeling first. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I'm feeling really stressed. I'm feeling really behind. I'm feeling really fill in the blank. Maybe you start with the emotion and then you go, okay, so what have I been thinking on repeat and what situations that relate to? So you don't always have to start at the very top, but you do want to go through the whole process because we don't want to stay with just this top part where we're just on never enough, right? We want to get to God's truth. And then we want to make sure that we then help that steer the direction of where our thoughts are. And it makes a huge difference in where your time is going. I can just tell you the CEOs that I'm already working with inside my program, like this one tool has shifted so many things for them, right? And you have an opportunity inside of the CEO program to get my feedback on your steer belief maps as often as every day, if that's what you want, right? Who else needs help and support around their thoughts, right? Sometimes we don't even see them ourselves and sometimes we can't see where it's taking us. So having someone else that can look at that makes all the difference. Okay, now, as we're winding down today, I want to thank you for being here. Again, I've given you some new beliefs. I hope that you're walking out of here going, I have time. And not only I have 24 hours or only 24 hours, right? But how are we looking at that now? I have more than enough, right? The time that God has given me is more than enough. I posted a point of view post on Facebook the other day. Oh, there are my dogs right at the end. I was hoping they'd stay quiet the whole time, but that's okay. We're almost done. That if God has called us to something, he will also equip us with everything we need, which I also believe includes our time, right? Because he knows that, yeah, we need the time to do that. And here's what I'm also going to tell you. We don't plant seeds and harvest in the same season, do we? How many of you have a garden? We're going to be talking about gardens tomorrow, okay? And what you need to do to protect what's inside growing, right? But do you plant seeds and expect this abundant harvest the next day? No, right? There is time in between. And sometimes that time is like, God, did you forget we planted these seeds and we're still not seeing the growth? Like, right? But here's where we trust that his time is enough and that his timing is enough. Okay? And here's where we have to be discerning about who we're listening to. Because when we go out there and we listen to just all these time management experts, we listen to these people who are, just trying to help you to be more productive with your time and be able to, fit more into the 24 hours you have. Like, I think they're missing the point, right? Because we're not here just to manage time. We're here to steward time. We don't want to keep circling never enough island, right? We want to take on his way and start moving towards more than enough island, right? And this is what the direction that God is going us. So I hope that you've gotten some value today. I hope that I've started to challenge some beliefs. I hope that you're starting to think differently about your time and about what things would be like if this was the island that you were hanging out on. Okay? So this is where I'm going to invite you to come over and hang out inside the Redeem Her Time community. This is where we're going to be sharing what we're learning and what we're doing with what we're learning. So if you're not already a member, the link is in the dashboard. So let me drop the dashboard link. So you have that again. Okay, and just click on the one that says join the community. It's a free community. We'll pop you in there. There are some other resources and stuff in there as well. You will see a homework post. Okay, so here's today's question. How will hanging out on more than enough island, believing you have more than enough, going to affect your life and business? What does life and business look like on more than enough island? I'm going to invite you can do it one of two ways. You could record a short video on your phone and then put it in there. This community doesn't allow you to go live. You would just have to do that and then just, put that in the comments, or you could just kind of, prayerfully think about it and type it out. Either way, it doesn't matter. It can be as simple as when Lissa said this, I realized, or this is my aha, or wow, like if I was believing that I had more than enough time, this is how that would change things. This is how I would feel when I woke up in the morning, or how I would feel when I went to bed at night, right? Just come and share one quick thing. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. This is how we're going to solidify right, what this new belief is and what that is going to lead to. And I'm going to be watching and commenting on every single thing that goes in the community this week, because I want to see, right, what you are believing about what that could look like, right? And to help you keep taking the steps in that direction and to help give feedback and things like that. You also have full access to me as your time stewardship coach all week inside the community. Okay, so take advantage of that, right? Like whatever you want to ask in there, okay, put that in there, because guess what? Chances are you're not the only person who's struggling with that. So other people are also going to get benefit from that as well. And hopefully you're going to get some perspective and some tools that will help you with that area of your time. And if you have questions, right? Wins, like whatever, like this is the place for us to really go, okay, what does this mean for me? Right? This is how we really go together. It's not just more information. We all have plenty of information. You all could have gone on Google and Googled time management tips. Boom, done, right? But if we really want it to work, we really want it to last, we want to make the true heart transformation, right? This is when we start at put the believing with the doing together, showing up like we are a CEO and that we have more than enough time, because we do. Okay. So tomorrow, yes, if you can't be on tomorrow, that's okay. There will be replays. So I get that you might not be able to be on live every day. That's why I give replays, right? I get that life is busy. I'm going to say that in air quotes. But tomorrow I'm going to give you permission to stop apologizing for putting limits, AKA boundaries, on your time. Okay. It is so freeing that once you know the time you have and the value of it, that it's okay to protect that time because you know what matters. So make sure you come back as long as you're available at the same bat time, same bat channel. So 12 o'clock Central Time, same link. Okay. And if you found this replay somewhere and you're like, okay, I don't even know what this is connected to, and you want to get in the room with the rest of us for the challenge, you can register for the challenge at redeemhertime.com/time. Okay. And those of you who are here right now, I want you to think about who needs to hear this. Who needs to hear this? Send her that link, redeemhertime.com/time. I will drop that in the chat. So that way we can help her start shifting, right? Things about her time. So before we go, I'd love to open it up. I'd love to hear at least one or two ahas or wow gods or whatever you want to call it. Well, what stood out to you? What was something you wrote down that you kind of want to spend some time chewing on between now and next time? You can just unmute and start talking, or you can raise your hand, which kind of brings you up to the top. All right, Diane.
I was thinking that, by the time I'm done with my day, I'm so tired that I just go to spend time with my husband. He likes to watch TV. That's what we end up doing. So my time isn't doing what I want it to do when I finish my day because I'm too tired.
Yeah.
And I look forward to figuring out how to better spend that time with my husband instead of watching TV. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah. Oh, girl, it totally does. How many of us, okay, we're gonna be honest here, CEOs are transparent, right? So say me or raise your hand. How many of us, like, that becomes our time at the end of the day? We're binging, we're scrolling, we're in front of something and we're numbing out. We're going to talk about this week refills and pour outs, right? And so one of the things I teach is that your day needs to have 2 specific times to refill. And we have a couple different ways that we're called to pour out. And one of those refills happens at the end of the day, right? Because yes, we need that time to refill, just like our devices, love them or leave them, right? These do eventually need to be plugged in so that they can, oh, speaking of which, did you get the screensaver? Hopefully you guys have that screensaver. When you registered, you should have gotten a link for that. So if not, check the challenge dashboard. This prompts me every time I pick up my phone. What is it time for? The choices are phone or no phone. And then it's got our verse on there. So I will make sure that should be on the dashboard. You should have already gotten it in an email when you registered, but I will make sure it's on the dashboard so you can grab that screensaver. But yes, you're right, Diane. It is not refilling. It's probably not really connecting you and your husband, right? It's just taking up space and time. And not that there aren't bad things. Like I said, my husband and I have been watching The Chosen, which has been great because it's really helping us to have some conversation around things that, we're learning in scripture and things like that. So yes, well, I'm glad awareness is the first place. So thanks for sharing that, Diane, and wanting to be intentional with that time. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Anybody else? Somebody else? Let's get 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, I just want to say, really caught my attention is when you were talking about the time, and when clocks were first, actually invented, but the time of, from sun up to sundown. And if they can have gotten 11 to 12 hours of sleep because of depending where, they were at. And that just kind of started thinking, so that would even like, if say example, I'm up at 6 and I don't go to bed till 10:30, 11. And so I'm getting that shorter amount of sleep, but I'm still trying to put more in, but that they got done what they needed to get done in that time. And it wasn't that constantly looking at the watch or looking at time. Where do I have to be at an appointment, or what if I have a commitment to?
Yeah.
It just seemed like they just flowed through their day of what it was that they needed to do through the day.
Yeah. Isn't that
versus
interesting? And they didn't have all the time-saving devices that we have now that are, supposed to be saving us all this time. I mean, yes, I'm so thankful to not have to go down to the river to wash my clothes, and I can just throw them in the washing machine, right? And I'm thankful I don't have to hang them on a line if I can throw them in the dryer. And yet it's not saving us time, right? Nothing has changed about our 24 hours, like you said. We're just giving it away to all kinds of lesser things, all kinds of other random things.
It's
right?
almost like looking what were their priorities at that point in time as well. And what have we taken on as we think our priorities need to be at this point in time where we're at? What the culture, where the culture that we're then. I mean, they had their food, even they had to kill the animal, they had to skin the animal, they had to
right. You couldn't just go to the grocery store or Instacart, right? Like no Instapots. They were actually working to survive, right? Well, guess what? Average person, over 4 hours of your day is going here. So this is a really simple place to start. Grab the screensaver, put it on there, be prompted with that question. Is it time to pick up my phone, or is it time for something else? Hey, we're going to talk about that question on Thursday. I can't wait, because this is a really just huge shifting thing, is to ask this question around our time. But yeah, noticing, wow, what would happen if I had another 4 hours in my day, or even if I got back 1 hour of that, right? Like, wow, we all say, I wish I had an extra hour in a day. Guess what? Here's your seat where it's hiding. So good. Anybody else? Anybody else have something? Go ahead. Melanie, can you just hit unmute? There you go.
Yes. Hi. So this was absolutely amazing. And it's so many nuggets that I took away from it. But the one that is really resonating right now is my daily bread. I never looked at time in that way. In terms of being grateful for the 24 hours, I am grateful for that. But I never looked at it from a perspective that I'm trusting God to provide another 24 tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you know how many times he says, right? I mean, when just thinking back to Sermon on the Mount, like, don't worry about tomorrow, right? Like, I have the time in front of me. I have the bread, the manna in front of me. Those Israelites, what happened when the Israelites tried to gather enough for tomorrow too?
Yeah.
It
And
rotted.
I remember someone saying years ago, let tomorrow take care of itself. Like, tomorrow is its own, problem. What have you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And interesting enough is like I'm here for time. And the reason I wasn't on camera, not because I didn't want to be present, but because I pulled an all-nighter last night and needed to go back to bed. And so I was just getting up. And so I was listening as I was preparing for my day again. But on the days that I am, and I'll be traveling part of this week too, but when I am available, I will be on.
Be on live when you can, listen to the replays when you can't. You guys, time is not our excuse. We let it be our excuse, right? It has nothing to do with the season of the year. Has nothing to do if you've got kids going back to school or not. Has nothing to do with the upcoming holidays. Who tells themselves around the holidays, oh, it's busy, it's the holidays. And then we just kind of resign ourselves to, I'll start January 1st, or I'll, once the new year's over, I'll have time. How many of us have thought, like, when my kids go to school, I'll have more time, or when the kids start driving themselves places, I'll have more time, or when they move out of the house, I'll have more time, right? Like, the problem is it's a heart issue, not all this stuff issue, right? And then we get to, like, Lord willing, one day grandparent age. I'm not there yet, but I've one who's married, and praying through future spouses for the other ones. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like when I've got my 3 kids plus their spouses plus their kids. Like, my time's going to be even more, right? Like, going out like this. And if we keep telling ourselves, well, once this happens, or once this is over, then I'll have time, right? We're believing a lie. So good. Yeah, been there. Now they're all grown. Exactly. It's almost like it was easier when they were little and they were all under your roof, and you could, you knew exactly where everyone was and what they were doing, and you could kind of be with all of them together. It does change. So good. Anything else that anybody has to or want to share before we hop off? Go ahead, Nikki, and then the rest of you, as you think of things, put them inside of the community.
Stewarding versus management. I never heard it or thought of it that way. Because one other session you talked about stewarding the time, and I thought, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
And the way you defined it today, that taking something and to find and protect it and enlarge it.
Yeah.
I'd never thought of it that way. To me, that was a huge aha.
That's amazing. I love that. And it was a huge haha for me when I felt like God just made it really clear. Because I think we oftentimes, if we hear the word stewarding, we connect it to our money. I'm stewarding my money, right? And I think, again, the same is true with our time, our treasure, and our talents. Those are three things that we're called to steward. And the biggest difference is the ownership piece. I don't own it all, and so it's not all on me. And the purpose is not just to, in fear, try to protect it and keep you away from it or keep myself away from it, but it's to grow the kingdom. And yeah, that starts shifting. That's how those of you who said you're a 2, you've been doing pretty good at time management, right? Like time management is this, keeping all my people in their places, right? Whack-a-mole when things pop up. Time stewardship is like this, right? I'm receiving this gift that I didn't create myself. Right? And now I'm with open hands, not afraid that it's going to get away from me, but I have intention around how I'm investing it and where I'm planting and listening to the master's voice and what he tells me. So I love that. Yay. Well, you guys have filled my cup. This is so great. And this is only day 1. So we're going to be coming back tomorrow. Again, I will see you over inside the community. Okay. That's where you can share more ahas, ask your questions, put your answer to the question, what would life on More Than Enough Island look like? I want to hear some specific things about what would that look like for you. And let's start building that belief and start seeing that abundance that God has for us. So we're not chasing the lack. All right. Well, thanks you guys for being here today. Thanks for those who hung out for me till the end and those of you who came back to watch replays, and I will see you tomorrow.